collaboration, working with other musicians. This is going to be one of those that this is just my angle of it. This is my side of the story. And everyone's going to have a different opinion in terms of how they navigate all of this. So, firstly, when it comes to writing music and collaborating with people in a writing sense, sometimes that can be kind of tough for me. This is a video diary, so this is more of a personal preference. But when it comes to working with people with writing, I don't really look forward to situations usually where I have to write with people. And that sounds kind of weird, but I feel like as a composer, when I'm bringing music to the table, I always feel like my idea is pretty fully formed for me. So when I bring an idea to the table, that's kind of how I'm hearing it. I usually don't have like, it could go this way, that way, but if you want to add something to it of your own, now it's different with the orchestra, and when I'm like writing something that I pass off for someone to interpret in their own style, that's different. But like in terms of like actually collaborating on the actual writing, sometimes that's tough for me, and I haven't done a lot of that. Usually, if I'm writing it, I'm writing it, and when I'm working with the orchestra, I'll write it, and they have a lot of room for their own interpretation of what I wrote. But I do have a hard time when it comes to like trying to write with people, because I usually feel pretty confident about my idea, and maybe that's some kind of ego thing. But on the other side of things, I've learned from working with the orchestra that sometimes I'll have an idea that I feel like is fully formed, and it is, but then when I pass it off to Elon or Mason or whoever's playing in the orchestra, they will take it to a whole nother level, and that is what I love. That's the best part of collaboration to me, is when they take that fully formed idea and then take it beyond what I could have even expected. Another quick thought about collaboration is when I'm working with people on other people's albums, when someone has me as a guest on their album, sometimes it can be very frustrating for me, because they'll hire me and say, yeah man, just do what you do, here's the idea, here's the basic concept, just do what you think, right? A lot of people say that at first, and then so I go in the studio and then I do what I think, and then they come back, yeah man, well actually if you do something more like this or more like this on this part, and honestly, since this is my video diary, I'm being more personal right now, sometimes it drives me crazy, but it's a lesson for me, because whenever they come back with instructions of like, oh man, actually I wanted you to do something more like this or more like this, it kind of like gets under my skin. But then I have to push myself in the studio to work harder to get it how the client wants it, and then through that process it actually becomes better, and it becomes more along the vision of the artist. So that's a very frustrating process, but I learn a lot through that. And yeah, it happens all the time. Like it happened today, actually. I worked on a project for a friend of mine who has an album coming out next year. His name is Marco. He's a drummer. And he had me just take a solo, and at the end he wanted me to play some crazy thing. So I played something that I thought was crazy, and then he was like, yeah man, if you can give me just a couple more options of that to play with. And I was like, man, it took me an hour just to work on these 2 measures, and now you want 3 more options. And so I kind of complained for a second, but then I got back to my recording setup, and I just worked on it more, and I sent him like a few more options, and at the end of the day we found the best take out of that. So he pushed me, even though it bothered me for a second. So we're all learning in this process, and yeah, and maybe one day I will work with someone and collaborate on actual music. I did work with Cody, right, on things for like Mixtape Symphony and things like that. We did kind of work together on a lot of those compositions. But generally, I tend not to collaborate when it comes to the actual writing process of it. But we'll see what happens.